This is the Extra Point Podcast. During this podcast, we will dive deeper into our Sunday teaching and share practical next steps for your faith journey. Now, let's kick off the Extra Point.
Hey, welcome to the Extra Point. I'm Cheryl Ross, the Next Steps in Discipleship pastor here, and I'm with Scott Beha, our lead pastor. And before we go any further, I just want to make sure if you haven't liked or subscribed to this podcast, you go ahead and do so. That way you don't miss out on any new content. But we are diving into week 1 of Rise and Fall Part 2.
The Deuce.
Yeah, we did. We did this series through 1 Samuel last year.
Yep.
And it was a 27-week series. So we are kicking off into 2 Samuel this year. And we will be going until Christmas, at least, right?
Yeah, we have a Christmas series that starts, I think, the first or second week of December.
Yes.
So it's going to be another long one. And I didn't have time yesterday to fully tell people why these series are so important, I think. So, like, up to this point in the year, we've done what's called topical preaching, where we've found topics that we felt like our church really needed to talk about. So we talked about marriage and relationships. We talked about prayer. And then I think there's a necessity in that. And every year there's going to be some topical stuff. And then I think we also, as a body, have a necessity to learn how to systematically study the scriptures.
Yes.
The way that they were actually meant to be read and studied, which is all together. Like 1st and 2nd Samuel is split up in our Bible, but it's actually not how it was written.
Right.
There is just a book of Samuel that when we went and put chapters and verses, and we divided that into 2 different books.
Yeah.
It's normally one large book. And the way that these large books were meant to be read and studied was as a cohesive whole. And I do think, I'm kind of the opinion that, like, we do live in a very biblically illiterate society, and part of that is because we, for a long time, went through this, like, movement in the church where we were just taking bite-sized bits and pieces of the scriptures and throwing them into sermons. And, I know for most people, they were probably raised in a church that did what's called proof texting when it comes to how the Bible was used in the preaching of their church, which means somebody gives a point, and then they go and find a verse, whether or not that verse is in context or not, to support the point. Yeah. And that's the way that the Bible was introduced to a lot of people, is kind of like just pick this verse, pick this story. And there's some power in that, sure, but there's also power in learning how all of these pieces fit together. And that's why every year here at Southridge, we're going to do some topical stuff based on things we see going on in the world or what we're hearing from our church, like things that we need to grow in. And then there's going to be some long, what's called exegetical teaching, where we're just going to take chapter by chapter. Let's weave a story together that when you are now reading the Bible on your own, you are now getting equipped with how to do that. Like, we were at lunch yesterday. Megan and I took a new couple from the church to lunch, which, if you're new to Southridge Church and you haven't taken advantage of that, we would love to connect with you. But we were doing that, and they were talking about the sermon and everything, and even Megan was like, I don't know that I would have ever gotten out of that text what you got out of it this week. And I was like, and that's kind of the point, is I don't think that the average Bible study person is going to remember 1 Samuel 31, or really, 31, that's where Saul dies, and then read 2 Samuel 1 a year later and go like, whoa, wait a second, these stories don't line up.
Right.
I don't think that the average, but what I want to do is to show you examples of how when you're reading the scriptures, that there is not just like, yes, that's a story being told of a historical things that actually happen, but there are deep, like, truths that are available in these that just speak into our life nowadays. Because it's not good enough just to know what the history was. It's how does that history intersect with the life I'm living right now, and what can I learn as the result of it? And that's what we do in exegetical teaching. It's a little different than topical preaching. And one of the things that I think is exciting is that over these months and months and months that we're going to cover 2 Samuel, like, we are no longer deciding what the topics are.
Right.
The text fully decides what the topic
Yes.
is each and every week, which is how you can have a kickoff week that's about you being fake, whereas we might not get there any other way.
Right.
Like the text is like, when you read it, you go, all right, this is what the Lord's speaking to me. And so it's a really, I like it because it means that the text is what's going to speak, because I do think there's merit in us knowing our congregation and going, all right, we need 10 weeks on prayer. I think
Yes.
it's something.
Right.
There's merit in that. There's also merit in going, and then God can take this text
Yes.
and he can teach us and show us things that we might never get to if we didn't force ourselves to walk through a book. Because, if not, what you end up doing when you're teaching a congregation, this is what every young preacher probably does, if they don't have some sort of exegetical process in their teaching, is they will teach topically, and they will teach the greatest hits. So they'll teach John 3:16. They'll teach John 14:6. They'll teach Luke 15, the parable of the prodigal son and the lost things.
Yeah.
They'll teach just really Noah's Ark. They'll teach Jonah and the well. They'll teach Daniel in the lion's den and Shadrach, Meshach. Like, we'll hit all the greatest hits. We'll go to Philippians 4:13. We're gonna hit all the greatest hits.
Yeah.
But then, everyone does this. At the end of about 18 months of preaching like that, you go, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Either I have to start over with everything I've already done, or I need to figure out how to teach the parts of the Bible that maybe I don't feel real comfortable with, or maybe I don't feel much speaking to me in that. Like it's the weirdest phenomenon for me. I was reading the first part of 2 Samuel a couple of weeks ago, trying to decide what I was going to teach in the first week and the second week, because I've got Aaliyah teaching for me on the third week, and I needed to let her know what my plan was. But I'm reading it, and it was a couple of weeks back, and I wasn't really prepping it or anything. And to be honest, I'm reading these stories, and I'm going, uh-oh.
Yeah.
It's like, what was I thinking? Like, what was I thinking? It was like some chapters, to be honest. I kept toying around with the idea of maybe starting in 2 Samuel chapter 5.
Yeah.
Like when the story really gets going, because these first 4 chapters are kind of like, what's going on here? It's just really a lot of civil war coming up. And it's all the moves that are being made to get David to where he's finally the king of Israel. And then we can really get into.
Right.
But I was having this moment, I'm reading it, and I'm going, I don't know. But then last week, this is the power of why we say that the Bible is alive and active, is that last week I sit down and I read it, and where I wasn't finding much traction in the previous readings of this, last week I read that and I go, okay, I know exactly what God wants me to talk about this week. So it's you have to have both. I'm a firm believer, for a church to be properly discipled, there needs to be both. You'll find some churches that are all topical. You'll find some churches that are all exegetical. I think that a mixture of both allows us to handle the most pressing issues of our congregation, as well as train you all how to walk through a book of the Bible and pull out really meaningful spiritual truths for your lives as well. So in addition to what we talked about, like not showing up to life in a fake manner, I hope you also learned a little bit about how to actually study the scriptures, to go, all right, I don't want to just learn about this story. I want to see what's actually here, and be able to walk away with something like what I was able to walk away with when I studied it, whenever you go and do it on your own. Yeah,
absolutely. I love that. I think that I saw the power in this kind of thing even before we did the series, because my Bible study, we went through 1 Samuel together. And what's cool is that, I might read it and get one thing, but, other people read it talking about how the Bible is alive and active. They pull out different things about it. And so even sitting down, maybe it is yourself, or maybe you have somebody else that you can get together with and say, hey, what did you get from this? Like, what do you think about how this guy did this? What do you think that means, for us? Because I know that there were so many moments like that in 1 Samuel where we are like, whoa, that was weird that the guy did that. or things that we just unpacked it and talked about those dynamics and what that might look like in our life today. And I think that this is a big thing for people to be able to look at it and see that there's more than just a story being told on the surface level.
Yeah. Well, the other power of it too is, this is what we did at the end of the end of the message, was we also show you how the string of typology for Jesus is woven throughout the whole scriptures.
Yes.
So when you study something like 1st and 2nd Samuel, it's very easy to see David as the typology of Jesus over and over and over again. And so it's pointing, like, it strengthens the case of Jesus in the New Testament to know, like, this is what the ancient writings were already saying.
Right.
And that David was going to be a type of what this Messiah was going to look like. And so you get that aspect as well. And then it also, like, it forces us into topics that I would have, I was just thinking while you were talking, late in 1 Samuel, Saul goes to the witch at Endor.
Yes.
And I go, like, we spent that whole week talking about the importance of going to God instead of to all of this stuff. And we got to, like, combat sort of the New Age philosophy and some of these wild things that we're doing where we're more spiritual than we are religious, and we're messing around with crystals and, guided meditations from, incantations and manifestations and all of this. Like, we got to go and talk about those things.
Right.
Like, when else might that come up if the text doesn't force you to come face to face with, like, dealing with some of that stuff? And so there's such power in teaching like this. And I told y'all before we started, I said it looked like when I told people we were going to do this until about the first week of December, some of their faces were like, ooh.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, what God can do through a series like this over all of these months is going to be so remarkable if you will stick with it.
Yeah.
Not just for what the weekly sermons have to say to your life, but also how it can teach you to study the Bible, which then can doubly enrich your life. Yeah. I think God can do something really awesome through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I would say that, like, if you're newer with us and maybe listening to this, that it does maybe seem a little daunting to hear that and think, oh my gosh, we're going to spend so much time in this. But that's probably because, as you said earlier, we're not used to that. We grow up in churches where this is rarely ever done. If it's a book study, then it's like a short book. Like,
and we hop all over the Bible.
Like that, those types of things.
We're in a different part of the Bible every week. Nothing ever. And this is one of those reasons why so many people grow up and they don't see the connections in the scriptures, because one week we're in Daniel and the next week we're in Matthew and then we're back in Genesis and then we're in Mark, and it's like nothing's ever connecting together because we're never teaching it connected together. Yeah. And that's one of the real big weaknesses of Christians in our day, is that they don't realize that how the beginning in Genesis and ending in Revelation, God was telling one consistent story that was meant to be read as a whole. Yeah. And when you just play Bible gymnastics and hop all over the place week to week to week to week, and nothing ever ties together, you rob people of them getting to see the beauty of the story that God has been telling this whole time, and also the beauty in how it's been written down, inspired by God over 1,500 years by over 40 authors, how they so consistently told the same story. You rob yourself of teaching your people the beauty of the scriptures also when you only teach like that. Yeah. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with teaching like that, but when you don't sit down, like, give your congregation 3 months in one place and let them trace out the movement that's happening. It's such a powerful thing for the understanding of the scriptures. And the better that you can come to understand books like 1st and 2nd Samuel, the better you'll actually understand the New Testament. Like, you'll see stuff in the New Testament and go, oh, that's an echo of what happened with David. Yeah. Like, there's such power in that.
Well, and there's also so many quotes in the New Testament of the Old Testament. Yes. Like, there's so many things like that where you can see how, that does tie in, or, that was said here. And it's just a beautiful thing to see in that way. And so I would definitely encourage you, if you haven't done that kind of thing, or if maybe this was like, I'm not sure if I'm up for that, just stick with us because I know we got a lot of positive feedback the last time.
Yes.
And I think people were pleasantly surprised and enlightened by it. And I think it will be the same for this. But so you talked about how the soldier in this story, he pretended to be someone he wasn't. He was faking it. And you talked about the consequences that he had because of that. And when it comes to our own lives, the consequences that we have for the lies that we tell or faking it or trying to be someone we're not, what are some of those consequences? Or do you have a story that you'd like to share with us that can kind of help drive this home a little bit more?
Yeah. See, and again, I was trying to make sure that this hit everybody, because I think in one way or another, all of us have a sense in which we're living a bit of a lie or lead with a little bit of fakeness in certain situations, right? Somebody comes up and asks you how you're doing, and you're not really that forthcoming with how you're really doing. Like that level of like dishonesty of when you go, oh, everything's okay, but everything's not okay. There even on the small scale, no, you're not out cheating on your husband or your wife or, committing fraud at work or whatever it is. Like maybe you're not doing those and those major lies, but that little subtle lie actually robbed you of perhaps someone being able to say, you know what, I'm praying for you. And you robbed you of so there's going to be even consequences, even in the small stuff. So I want to make sure that we know that every time that we choose to hide what's actually true, there's going to be a consequence for that action, no matter how big, no matter how small. But then I spent some time thinking about this guy's story, and I went, what if David had responded differently? What if David had responded differently and accepted this man into his entourage? Which we know happens in life. You tell a lie, and it actually works, and you go like, oh, it really worked. Well, the problem then becomes that now your life becomes that lie and becomes all in service of protecting that lie. And so it's like you're all on edge the rest of your life until you finally get found out because you're living a lie.
Yeah.
And now you can't be your best self ever because all of your energy has to be put into, like in this man's case, what if somebody else at that battlefield saw what happened and years down the road came in to David's group of people and goes, who's this guy? Oh, this is the guy that killed Saul. And they go, no.
Yeah.
I was there. I saw what happened.
Yeah.
That's that everyone waiting on the other shoe to drop. That's a recipe for an unbelievably anxious life. When you're never your truest self, you're always wondering, when are they going to find out? When are they going to find out I really don't belong? When are they going to find out that I'm really not like this or like whatever? Like you come to church here, you put on your good church face and your nice church clothes and carry your Bible and raise your hand during worship, but you're acting wild all throughout the week and you're going, I wonder when they're finally going to find out. That's a recipe for a miserable life to not be who you really are. And I know, like for me, like I get kind of mixed reviews about my transparency and vulnerability, but like for me, I'd rather you just go ahead and decide that you don't want nothing to do with me because you know the actual real me than like try to pretend like I've got it all together.
Right.
And you go, well, that's really what I was looking for. Because at the moment that you find out that that's not the truth, you're not going to want anything to do with it. So like, I want us to know that when we show up fake in situations or we decide to outright lie, you have to live with that until you're caught.
Yeah.
Right? So I have this story. I meant to tell it on Sunday. And it's a silly story from when I was in high school, but it like will really illustrate this idea about consequences. And so I used to work at Rock Lake Putt Putt, which was down in South Charleston. If you're not from around here, or you're just really young, you won't understand what that was, but that was the place. Did you ever go there?
No.
You were raised in Huntington.
Yes,
so.
Right.
So South Charleston had a putt-putt course that used to be a big swimming pool. They turned it into a putt-putt course. They had like 3 putt-putt courses on it. They had bumper boats. They had batting cages. They had like water balloon, like launchers, it was the only place you could ride go-kart. I mean, it was amazing. Indoor, arcade, concession stand, it was the place to be. Like
Okay.
if you were anybody, your birthday party was at Rock Lake Putt Putt
Okay.
every single year, which of course mine wasn't. But I got to work there over the summer of my junior year of high school. I got to work at Rock Lake Putt Putt, which was a dream come true. Like only the coolest people worked at Rock Lake Putt Putt. And I ran the bumper boats and I ran the batting cages, which was all the way in the back of the property. And so during most summer days, I literally just sat in a lawn chair back by the bumper boats and nobody came back there. It was a dream job. Well, I'm working one Friday night. I wasn't back at the bumper boats, I don't think, because I was in a more visible position than that. And there's this group of high school girls that's come to hang out at the Rock Lake because that's just what people did. And one of the girls had her friend come over and talk to me. She was interested in me, apparently, and wanted to know my name and if I'd give her my phone number. I was not equally interested. And so I told her that my name was Adam. I'll save the last name because this guy lives in South Charleston, and gave her my name, Adam Blank, with this phone number, which happened to be his phone number, and gave her that because I'm thinking this is like it's not going to be a big deal. I've never seen this person a day in my life. I'll never see her ever again. Like here's my name. My name's Adam. Here's my phone number. Sure, give me a call. But, like, I had no interest. I was not going to tell her my real name. And so I tell this lie. So now to her, I'm Adam. Like, that's my name. I'm Adam. The next day, I'm playing baseball at Dunbar, and I'm heading up to bat for one of my first at-bats of the day. And I notice a group of girls that I've never seen before until the night previously has arrived at one of our games. And sure enough, the girl that I told my name was Adam and the wrong phone number to is part of this group. And as I walk up to bat, they said, now coming up to bat, Scott Beha. And I just put my head down like, oh my gosh. Like that was the quickest turnaround for a lie falling apart that you could ever imagine. And as I'm walking back to the dugout right in front of this group of girls, she goes, oh, nice, Adam. And I was like, oh, my gosh, I can't believe how poorly that went. It would have just been way easier to have been like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. Right. But I lied. And, again, if she hadn't shown up at that baseball game for the rest of my life for that person, I'm Adam. So when you choose to lead with a lie, you are stuck. If it works and you go, that's awesome, it worked. No, it's not awesome. You're stuck with it. Yeah. For the rest of your life, you're stuck with it. Like, you ever see these, like, on TV shows, people will, like, if someone's trying to pick up a woman at a bar or whatever, they'll fake and act like they're somebody that they're not. If it works, how do you explain that?
I mean, I think of like simple things like when you're just in a relationship and you pretend that you're into things that you're not, and then it's like you at a certain point are like, I really don't want to do this thing anymore because this isn't actually me, right?
Yeah, if you're like, oh yeah, I'm an outdoors girl just to impress the outdoors guy, and then y'all get married and you hate each other because you're not really an outdoors girl. It would be just better to say up front, no, I'm not really into that. Yeah. Right? And so, like, whatever it is, again, no matter how small or how big, there's going to be consequences for those lies. And sometimes the consequence is that it actually works. And then you have to live miserable, hoping that you're not found out to be a fake for the rest of your life. And I got into it on Sunday. Like, listen, I think sometimes when our lies and being fake is working, we think that we're getting away with it. And, again, I said it Sunday. I'll say it again today. I do not find this situation to be funny whatsoever that's going on with this whole Coldplay concert with the man that was cheating on his wife. It's not something to make memes about and not something to make jokes about. Right. That's someone's family that got destroyed. It's also a very poignant reminder to all of us that if you don't think that God will shine a light on the deepest, darkest places of your life that you think are hidden, He will use any means necessary to uncover your sin. If you think that you're above that or beyond that, let that internet sensation this weekend be a quick reminder that whatever it is that you think that you're trying to hide, God has all sorts of ways He can bring stuff to light, and He will. He will. And truthfully, I'll be honest, as Christians, we need our prayer to actually be for God to expose us.
Yeah.
Like, we need to be exposed.
Yeah.
We need to be, God, if there's something in me that's not right, I want to know about it. I want to know about it, because if I don't know about it, I can't do nothing about it.
Right.
And if I'm living dangerously in some sort of way, like, God, I pray somebody else finds out about it, so the way there can be accountability, the way there can be change.
Yeah.
And so, again, I don't find that situation to be something to make memes about or laugh at by any means. I saw it as like, listen, you're a CEO, you think that you're above everything? You will get found out in the weirdest way imaginable, in the most publicly humiliating way possible for your family. And anyone listening to this, if that's part of your story, you're kind of living on the edge, just know how dangerous what you're doing is, because there will be consequences. Like this man in the story, the Amalekite, death. I think some of us might die from the stress of our secrets, sure. But I also know that there's been a lot of marriages that have seen their death because of secrets and being fake. A lot of relationships with kids, parents and kids that are destroyed because of lies, jobs that have been lost, health, sanity. So,
I think like friendships have been lost too, because 100%. I think that simple lie of I'm fine over and over again, when your friend really knows you're not, it feels like you maybe don't trust me, or feel as maybe that this relationship, this friendship is as deep as I do. And so, because I've had this happen with friends before, like where they sit there and they just pretend like everything's okay. And I know for a fact it's not. And it's like, and you sit there wondering, well, if you're not going to put the effort in or trust me, but you want to know all about my stuff, I'm not going to necessarily share that. And so there's friendships even that are lost by these things that like you think are not a big deal. Yeah. But I would end up being a big deal at a certain point.
I mean, there's the death of your reputation. There's the death of your future in a lot of ways. When you decide to lie and be fake, death is what follows in one way or another. And so I just hope that we realize the gravity of the consequences for showing up fake in different ways and leading with lies and trying to hide who we really are.
Yeah. So why do you think, because I know you kind of posed this question, but you kind of answered it with, we don't really have to, but why do you think it is that we tend to settle for fake versions of ourselves or do things for the approval of others in ways that maybe don't even really matter? Why do you think we tend to lean that way?
Yeah. Here's why, and I can speak on this from a very personal place. To find a healthy person would be like finding a 4-leaf clover. It would be like finding the pot of gold at the end of a rainbow to find a healthy person. I don't know if they even exist. And that's why we are the way that we are. The level of our own brokenness is so think of the most confident person you know, and most likely within them is some sort of brokenness, whatever's driving them to be that confident. To find someone that's truly healthy. Like, this is why I tell everyone needs a counselor, because everyone's messed up. If you were to find someone truly healthy, it feels like it would be a miracle. And that's why we do this. And that's why we do a lot of the stuff that we do. Is we are so insecure and anxious because we're insecure. We are not healthy. We do not have a good self-image of ourselves. We do not have a good understanding of who we are in Christ to find a sufficiency that's only in Him and not in what other people think or say. This is why we do it. And then, like, I know I shared a little bit of my reasoning sometimes is I have almost, at this point in my life, especially in ministry, been hurt so many times by letting people in that I've almost been trained now to withhold information because I don't want people to use it against me. Right? I remember I was taking some criticism from somebody at church. This is like long time ago. And one of the things they said about me was that I was in a bowling league. I don't even know what the context was, to be honest, but I remember I was like, it made me go like, maybe people don't need to know everything about me and my family because they're going to use everything they can against me.
Yeah.
This has happened repeatedly.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I tell Megan all the time, I say, there's parts of our life I don't even feel comfortable sharing with people because people have this thought about us as a pastoral family and the things that we should do or shouldn't do. And, like, I've gotten very guarded about it, and I don't like that because I don't like having to not show who I really am. But I do it as a defense mechanism now. And again, it doesn't come from a healthy place. I'm not saying that I'm right in doing that. There's just been so many instances where that's been the case where people have used, oh, I saw your Facebook post, and I don't think that you should be doing that against us. That I go, it's very hard for me to show up genuinely authentic with very many people.
Right.
Even my friends in ministry, because my friends in ministry are so diverse in their view of how things should be as well, that it's like it's very difficult to find a place where you can just feel comfortable. So I think the unbelievable depths of our brokenness and unhealth and the fact that we've been hurt so many times makes it very difficult for us to show up. And the point of my sermon is not that you have to show up completely 100% with everybody, because I don't think that. I think that's one of the things I'm learning. Like, I can be my realest self with certain people, but I've allowed other people to have access to things that I should have never let them have access to. Those have been the ones that have hurt. And so there is a wisdom in, like, no, I'm not saying give all of my information to everybody and everything, but you need to be your realest self with somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, Lisa TerKeurst in her book, Good Boundaries and Goodbyes, talks about this a bit, about the level of access that we give to people, which is a fantastic read on that. But I think, like, knowing, you kind of tied in at the end that, you know, there is one who knows us best.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what we try to hide, there's one who knows all of those things about us. And that communion that we have with God is going to be that place where, you know, those things can be exposed, where you can be your complete 100% authentic self and know that there's love and compassion within there. Yes, there might be some consequences still, or there might be some things that might not feel great to be exposed, but it's done out of love and it's done out of those things. And so I think that the more that somebody can be close with God in those moments, the more it's going to help, and with that health that is needed. A Work of Heart by Reggie McNeil, I just had to, you know, read it again for leadership focus, and that's one of the things that they talked about is the communion with God that, like, leaders in Scripture, like Moses and David had, allowed them to be able to be who they were, and allowed David to, you know, not want to kill Saul in those moments, because he understood who he was and who God was. And so I think, you know, focusing on that relationship first and foremost is going to help within the others. But we definitely do know that, you know, being authentic is the best option, as you said. So I think we will end there. I hope that this was helpful for you, and I look forward to joining you again next week with another deep dive into our Rise and Fall series.
Thanks for tuning in to The Extra Point. Be sure to subscribe to the Southridge Church podcast and tune in every Wednesday for another episode of The Extra Point.